After 48 hours of intense competition here on the shoreline in Fujairah in the United Arab Emirates, we are ready for the first finals of the 2025 UIM MotoSurf World Championship. Welcome to the bakery is all I can say. 44 degrees Celsius down here on the Corniche Street shoreline. And this is going to be a fascinating battle amongst all of the contenders across the junior boy, junior girl, masters, rookie plus, stock, women's and elite categories. There is so much action to come, and with these being the finals coming up, only the best of the best have been able to make it to this point. It's time to cut the wheat from the chaff and go out onto the water and put up or shut up. Hello everybody, Jake Sanson here on the shoreline from what is going to be a very intense battle in the finals on the UIM MotoSurf World Championship. It's been a very tough weekend leading up to this point. All of the contenders have had to take on the intense air temperatures, which are currently at 44 degrees Celsius here on the shoreline of the United Arab Emirates. 18 nations represented across the 80 competitors across all of our categories. And they've definitely found it tougher to cope with the conditions than they did 2 months ago when they were fighting for their positions in the World Games qualifiers. But the United Arab Emirates has once again greeted us and treated us to another fantastic weekend of racing. This is the only city in the United Arab Emirates to be found on the east coast of the country. It's famous for its mountain climbing, its fishing, its bullfighting, and its water sports. And here, the MotoSurf is what takes center stage. And a fantastic event has been very much part of the fabric of the last couple of seasons of the UIM MotoSurf World Championship, starting the season here in the United Arab Emirates under the patronage of His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Hamad Al Shaqi, the Crown Prince of Fujairah, who has been so passionate and so kind in how he has been part of this event, looking to try and solve problems, make things bigger, make things more exciting for everybody. And it is wonderful to see just how much enthusiasm and how much excitement there is for the sport. The jet ski officials, the broadcast crew around the course, the officials in their huts, they've been treated to a very exciting but very demanding schedule of pace and heat and intensity. But it's all been worth it. Magnificent work from everyone that have led us up to this point with an exciting battle across the finals. All of the races from here on in are going to be longer and tougher. As the wind has picked up a little bit over the course of the day, the waters are going to be at their most choppy, their most tricky, and their most treacherous. This course changes every single lap. It's not like any other form of racing sport. The course will definitely get more demanding as the day goes on. You can see for yourself as the 18 nations flags are flapping in the breeze on the wet pits on the part of the straight that the wind is definitely rising in its intensity. And as a result, everybody is going to feel the heat bigger than ever before. But we've had great racing, great thrills, great spills, a fantastic flag parade, and even a marriage proposal. Congratulations, by the way, to Alan and Irene, who will go back to Macau engaged. But the clear blue waters of the Indian Gulf, if you carried on out of the shore here and go straight across the ocean, you will end up on the shoreline in Iran. It is a beautiful part of the world, this, in the Middle East, a fantastic opportunity to take in all of the beautiful marine wildlife as well. So many different species of fish and crab, and even a few turtles have popped up to the surface to come and have a look at the MotoSurf action over the course of the last 3 days. But now we get to the serious business of the finals, and we're going to start in fantastic fashion with the junior categories. They have been really exciting over the course of the last 48 hours. Before this point, the junior girl and junior boy categories were racing against each other. Now they will separate and split up, ready for the last battle. And it really is going to be a fascinating duel for everybody as they get themselves into position. We will start the day with the junior boy category. And the man who's been dominant so far, Stanislav Kohut, will take up residence in pole position. You're looking over at the Fujairah Marine Club that has welcomed us over the course of these first 3 days of the season. They've been absolutely phenomenal when it comes to the hospitality, when it comes to the facilities, when it comes to the catering, when it comes to every single element. We've really enjoyed being here in Fujairah, including the pleasure of not having to get rental cars, because the hotels on the shoreline have been welcomed to all of the competitors and all of the officials. Those 2 hotels you're looking at there just behind us basically have been taken over by the entirety of the MotoSurf community, whether they are official or competitor or film broadcaster. every single one of us staying in those 2 hotels. So essentially we get to walk to work and walk back from work every single day. It's a very nice privilege, actually. Very nice treat. But the shoreline is going to give us a very exciting battle out on the course for the Fujairah Grand Prix of the United Arab Emirates, the first round of 5 in the UIM MotoSurf World Championship 2025. From here, the second round of the championship will take us to Turkey in June. Then we will have the World Games in Chengdu in China, where MotoSurf will take centre stage for 24 male athletes, 19 female athletes, and of course the Nations Cup, where 1 man and 1 woman will take on the competition. Then, of course, a little bit of a breather before we get back to round 3 of the championship in Italy in the early part of October. Then a week later, we'll be in Croatia at Zadar. And then the final round of the championship will be in Macau for the World Cup. So time to go racing then for the first time this afternoon in the finals. And it's the junior boy final, first of all. 6 laps of racing, 2 long laps. And it's Stanislav Kohut on pole position. The Austrian, Mad Leo Krasherville, is going to be there in second on the grid. Matthias Barvik will be third, along with Oliver Wolf, Max Hruška and Jakub Noručny in P6. So with all of the youngsters going out onto the water, the real duel for the victory here looks likely to be between Stanislav Kohut and Leo Lišar-Kratishvili. 2 very different young competitors, great young athletes who have got themselves into the mix in fantastic fashion. They really wanted to be part of this incredible duel for supremacy. And they're definitely going to get the chance to do that. So now we're going to see an amazing duel out on the course between these young competitors who have given us so much excitement and entertainment over the last 3 days. So now they get to duel for the victory. And I cannot wait to see how this plays out. Over the heats, Stanislav Kohut has been dominant. And 4 races have given him 4 race victories. His preparation for this is a pretty exciting one. He is pretty much a sporting junkie. He also races fast-track motorbikes and ovale mini bikes, as well as competing on MotoSurf. When I asked him earlier, what does he prefer the most? And he said, there's nothing like racing a motorbike. He loves the ovales. But here in Fujairah, he has taken to the water, where he's actually said there's a lot of crossover in terms of the physicality of riding a motorbike as there is on a jet surf. But this young man, Leo Lišar-Kratishvili of Austria, his best chance yet of going for a victory in the MotoSurf World Championship. He was just outside the top 5 last year in the championship running. A lot of the contenders from last year's junior boy category stepping up into other classes in 2025, which kind of opens things up for everybody else to make a neat impression of things. Last year, of course, the junior boy title was wrapped up by Sebastian Kostelecky, who is not here this week, nor is the man who fought for his championship, Lucas Schneider. Adam Kolar, I believe, who has stepped up, is here. Mikolas Kostelecky is also not here. So Leo Lišar-Kratishvili came into this season as the leading seed, 5th last year in 2024, I should say, sorry. Now he steps up to the junior boy title fight, but he is going to have an interesting battle at that with Stanislav Kohut, who has come fresh out of the blocks and is a real title contender. We are in the row and we are racing. Good start from Stanislav Kohut with Leo Lišar-Kratishvili drawing level with him alongside, trying to get that run to the far side. A little bit of a lip there from one of the waves, but now it's up to see whether Leo Lišar-Kratishvili can take him on. He has to hang back. So Stanislav Kohut leads the way at the moment as the riders charge forward to try and make a benefit on this first start. Matthias Barvik and Oliver Wolf have had a bit of a tricky one. But there's going to be a bit of pressure as well from Max Hruška, but certainly out in front. No worries at all for Stanislav Kohut, who has been so strong out of the blocks. The fight for second place is going to be intense here, but Leo is going to try and hold on here in front of Matthias Barvik. And Mad Leo holds on to that second position for the time being. Good work then from the Austrian. So out in front it is Stanislav Kohut. No worries at all for him as he goes into the first part of his race. There is the 3, that is Matthias Barvik, looking for an opportunity to take on the 2 men up front. 6 laps of racing, though, is very intense indeed in a junior category. It's 1 lap more than the heats that we saw. They've both got to go on long laps. They've got to do 2 long laps each, of course. So, having decided that he's not going to get to the first corner first, Matthias Barvik is now going to take the long lap first and foremost. He's going to try and use strategy and good tactics to good measure. So he will work his way forward around the long lap and rejoin further on in the race. So currently it is Stanislav Kohut. Apparently Oliver Wolf is showing in front of Leo-Lisha Kratishvili, so Oliver Wolf must have got an absolutely incredible start. I didn't really see that, but Oliver Wolf is certainly giving chase to the riders up in front. There is Leo-Lisha Kratishvili. He's certainly chasing someone in the white water, and I do believe that is the four of Oliver Wolf. So Stanislav Kohut is still your race leader, having a very good time of it as he goes through the finish gate. Excellent work from him so far, and it's all looking very neat and tidy for Kohut in front of Wolf, Lisha Kratishvili, Barvik, Hrushka and Narochny. All going well so far for Stanislav Kohut. Just taking it nice and easy. Hand is in the air, so he's going to go for the long lap this time as we take a look at Oliver Wolf, trying to get well clear of Leo-Lisha Kratishvili. Still having a very tough race of it, those two. Oliver Wolf from the Autozentrum Viskov awning. And there is your leader, Stanislav Kohut, who's had a very strong time of it. Winner of all 4 heats and the fastest junior in qualifying. Looking so comfortable here in the United Arab Emirates. This is his race to lose, and I think he knows it in his mind. So Stanislav Kohut just trying to keep it nice and tidy as he runs through. Back onto the course after his long lap, through the right-hander. And he will continue his charge for the victory. There is the 4, that is Oliver Wolf. Just behind him, I believe, is going to be still Leo-Lisha Kratishvili, unless, of course, Leo has taken his long lap. So the fight for the trophies is going to be an interesting one. But there's still a lot of work for all these riders to do in 2025. Just because the form is the way it is in Fujairah doesn't mean it's going to stay that way. By the time they get to Turkey in 2 months' time, things could have changed. So you've got to take advantage of these situations while they're there. Stanislav Kohut is being chased down by this man, Leo-Lisha Kratishvili. The Austrian still trying to get the most out of this final. Only 6 laps of racing in the junior boy. Same as in the junior girl, of course, as well. They get 6 laps of racing as well. And they work their way through the tight and twisty sections of the slalom. So Oliver Wolf is in the lead at the moment, courtesy of the fact that he has yet to take his long lap. So through the finish gate goes the number 1, Stanislav Kohut, still trying to chase down Oliver Wolf and Max Hrushka, who is currently in 2nd position. So still some good rhythm and good performances from our contenders as they try to give us an awful lot more drama. Oliver Wolf has come back onto the circuit, and he's almost parallel to Matthias Barvik as he comes back onto the course. So a big moment between the two of them. Barvik decides to go for his 2nd long lap as through goes Oliver Wolf. So Wolf rejoins behind Matthias Barvik. Now that's significant for Barvik because he really wanted to get a decent run off the turns, and that puts Barvik, for my money, into contention for 2nd place because Barvik and Leo-Lisha Kratishvili were very close together. As, of course, Oliver Wolf is in that mix as well. There goes Stanislav Kohut, just working his way through to the slalom for the 4th time. Certainly looking neat and tidy from him at the moment. Doesn't need to exert himself too far. He just needs to stay within his comfort zone. It looks pretty neat and tidy for the moment as he continues to run in close proximity. Leo-Lisha Kratishvili pushed on by his father, who is in the water, trying to encourage him, as there is Jakub Naruchny trying to close up on the rest of the field. There's Stanislav Kohut into lap number 5. So Stanislav Kohut looking for a little bit more to pull away from his rivals. But this is starting to look really confident indeed from Kohut. He doesn't have to push himself too hard. There's the arm in the air for the 2nd time. So Kohut will take his 2nd long lap. There he goes. Onto the far side, taking the left-hand turn. That's a little bit more throttle required from Stanislav Kohut. This is where you've got to be very careful, where the balance really creeps in. But you can see from his body language there, his knee position, he's just so calm and confident. Doesn't need to worry too much about how he positions himself. It's all looking very natural as he rejoins the course. There is the 3, that is Matthias Barvik. And in the distance, you can see Leo-Lisha Kratishvili there. There's the 5, that is Max Hrushka, who is currently running in 2nd position, having left his long laps very late indeed. Both he and Oliver Wolf have elected to leave it a little bit later than the others out there, so they've obviously decided to focus on their positions on the course and then try and break the rhythm with the long laps later on. But still a very exciting race course at the moment here in the Fujairah Grand Prix. Good run from both of these men for Matthias Barvik and Oliver Wolf. But Stanislav Kohut is your race leader. So let's see if we're going to get one final charge, because Matthias Barvik has taken both of his long laps already, as has Jakub Narochny. Stanislav Kohut has only just taken his second long lap, so he's going to finish off the lap run now. But he's chasing down the man in front of him, which I believe is Oliver Wolf. One lap to go then for Stanislav Kohut. The man in front of him is going to take one more long lap. And that will leave Stanislav Kohut into the lead of this race. And Kohut has got the confidence to charge after Max Hruška. It's actually Hruška, not Wolf. So Wolf has taken his second long lap, so only Hruška left to take the second long lap, which he does. And so Stanislav Kohut takes back the lead, while Max Hruška goes on to the long lap for the last time. So how many people are going to get ahead of him? Well, there's second going through. There's third. There's fourth. And there's fifth. So I'm afraid Hruška is going to drop right to the back. But a big battle all the way through. There's a bit of a twitch there from Jakub Narochny. No worries at all for Oliver Wolf to get past him. So Kohut is going to be the leader. Barvik is going to be second. And Oliver Wolf is going to be third in front of Leo Licher-Kratishvili. But what a performance from this man. Pole position in qualifying on Friday. 3 wins yesterday. A win this morning. And he's going to make it an absolute perfect score. Oliver Wolf doing his best to close up on Barvik. But it's not going to be enough. He will have to settle for third. Barvik in second, but the race winner is going to be Stanislav Kohut. He will come through for victory in the junior boy final. An excellent display from Stanislav Kohut. He crosses the line at the finish gate now, and it's a victory for Stanislav Kohut. He is the first final winner of the UIM MotoSurf World Championship 2025. He takes the junior boy final, and it's domination all week long for Stanislav Kohut. Not a single slip-up, not a single fall. He's been immaculate all week. And Stanislav Kohut is the king of Fujairah. Excellent celebrations as well for Stanislav Kohut. He can finally let rip. And the ocean blue of Fujairah has been conquered in junior boy by Stanislav Kohut. Matthias Barvik in a very strong second. Oliver Wolf in third. So it's an all-Czech podium in junior boy, but it's Stanislav Kohut who gets the victory, 16 seconds clear of Matthias Barvik. Oliver Wolf in third position in front of Leo Licher-Kratishvili. Max Hruška is fifth, and Jakub Narochny coming home in P6. But a terrific display all week long from Stanislav Kohut. It's been an absolutely immaculate result for him. Pole position, heat win victory in Heat 1, Heat 2, Heat 3 and Heat 4, and now he has done it in the final as well. It's a massive celebration for Stanislav Kohut. There is his father ready to greet him. And the junior girls will get underway very shortly as well, with Ellen Berdova, Nela Pozhnikova, Maja Žilevinska and Melanie Janhubova ready to take to the waves to give us another excellent showcase. Can anybody beat Ellen Berdova? So a celebration there as Matthias Barvik congratulates Stanislav Kohut. It's been a really exciting run. Oliver Wolf has congratulated him there as well. I think disappointment for Leo Licher-Kratishvili, the Austrian, not quite getting what he wanted out of that final. But there is a very happy lad and dad as Stanislav Kohut takes the victory in the junior boy final in the first round of the UIM MotoSurf World Championship. Great work from the 12-year-old for HKC Racing. Excellent result. And a good job there as well for Matthias Barvik. He can be happy with second place. Fantastic scenes of celebration down here in the shoreline of Fujairah. Stanislav Kohut is your winner in junior boy. He takes the junior boy final victory. Second for Matthias Barvik. Third place for Oliver Wolf as Stanislav Kohut lifts his board above his head. A fantastic victory for Stanislav Kohut. The 12-year-old from HKC Racing opens his account with a victory. So there are the spectators getting themselves ready for an exciting battle. The couple of contenders who are gearing themselves up ready for the women's races later on. But the junior boys is complete for 2025's opening round of the championship. And it's Stanislav Kohut who dominates the waves in Fujairah. Next up, it's going to be the challenge in the women's category. And it's all going to be about Ellen Berdova to see if the 12-year-old can be vanquished by either Nela Pozhnikova, Maya Zhulevinska, or Melanie Janhubova. Just a 4-rider race, this one. Only 4 junior girls competing in the first round of the championship. But it's only fair that when you're fighting in individual classes that the opposing classes don't get in your way. So the final is going to see these 4, Berdova, Pozhnikova, Zhulevinska, and Janhubova, challenge for the victory. Again, it will be 6 laps. Again, it will be 2 long laps. So it'll be a fascinating challenge to see who is going to get the best of it across this fantastic run. So as all the contenders gear themselves up ready for the women's final later on, we've got the junior girls final first and foremost. Just to give you a heads up, by the way, as to the 12 ladies that did make it through to the women's final. Pole position, Eliska Matuskova, then Aneta Shtukalova in second place ahead of Emma Struchalova and Valentina Novotna. Sara Zubarova qualifying 5th in front of Mariana Navarova, who was the original pole position sitter, of course. 7th for Barbara Korodova, 8th place Lara Markova, 9th is Kristina Hrbkova, 10th for Linda Lukscheider, 11th for Elizabeta Fajtova, and the final qualification place is given to the Polish rider Rosalia Janora. Unfortunate for those who didn't make it, the likes of Adela Ostrichalova, Natalie Kashnikova, Yue Nijin, and the likes of Eunjin Lee, who's been struggling for physical fitness all the way through the week. Also to the very talented Dinara Ibragimova, who was not able to qualify on this occasion for the finals. But a really strong performance from all of the contenders. There's a lot of great racing to come in the women's race later on. And we're really excited to see what's going to happen in their race. But we'll see a really exciting challenge as the contenders are hopeful of another great race here on the shoreline in Fujairah. And the UIM MotoSurf World Championship is going to give us such an exciting charge forward, with the junior girl final going to give us a very tough race indeed. It's all about one lady, though, in junior girls so far this week. Ellen Berdova, who in the heats was 2nd overall every single time, never fell off the board once, never had to exert herself more than necessary, and certainly did a fantastic job over the course of the qualifying heats. It's going to be a really interesting challenge for her to see if she can continue her magnificent climb forward. And the junior girls final will be a very exciting one. Just waiting a quick pause, I think, because there needs to be a slight adjustment technically with a couple of issues out on the course. And then once that is done, we will be ready to go racing again in the junior girl final. So now it's going to be an exciting situation as the ladies category prepares to go racing for the first time today. They'll be separated into two groups. Here is the starting positions for heat number 4, Group A. And it's the reigning world champion, Eliska Matuskova, lining up in first position ahead of Emma Struchalova, Valentina Novotna and Kristina Hrbkova, the new girl, Lora Markova and Elizabeta Fatova, from Adela Ostruchalova, Unjin Lee and Polina Karpova. So expect some intense racing now from the women's category very early doors. This is their 4th and final heat before they have to prepare for their finals a little bit later on. All of the contenders looking for a strong run. Now, there was a bit of a conversation last night at the gala dinner as to whether or not Unjin Lee was going to be racing this morning. She wants to. The team would rather she didn't. She's had all sorts of discomfort with her ribs since the start of the weekend, but she has braved the pain and pushed on through. She had a little bit of heat exhaustion yesterday. Not surprising, of course, because it's 44 degrees Celsius at the height of its powers. And it's also worth bearing in mind that she's in quite considerable physical pain, but she's braving it like a true adrenaline junkie gladiator, as she refers to herself. So hopefully she'll be out on the water, but if she isn't, we'll know why. Eliska Matuskova starting the race from pole position. There she is, the reigning world champion. An amazing talent, the first competitor to qualify for the World Games in Chengdu in August. She knew that all the way back in Macau in November. But Eliska Matuskova, 17 years of age for the Rocket Racing MP Sports team, the reigning world champion in the women's category, and definitely a force to be reckoned with again in 2025. Could well go for back-to-back world championships. It's been a sensational run so far from Eliska Matuskova this weekend. Didn't get the perfect run in qualifying, but has definitely had the tenacity and the ability to charge her way back into supremacy. So a good run so far from Eliska Matuskova. And she's going to have a lot of hard work to keep the ladies behind her. I'm just going to count how many we've got. We've got 8. So that tells us everything we need to know. There would be 9, but it looks to me as though Unjin Lee has not decided to take the start. She was very exhausted yesterday. And I have to say, for the safety of the riders, that has to take paramount concern above anything else. So I am not at all surprised. And we wish her all of our very best in terms of the recovery for Unjin Lee, in the hope that she will be up to racing for round 2 of the championship in Turkey in June. So hand in the air for our pole sitter, Eliska Matuskova, who's just controlling the pace. She'll drop her arm, and then we'll go racing. So Polina Karpova just dropping back a little bit. She has to leave a little bit of space, even though Unjin Lee is not there. She has to leave a little bit of space for where Unjin Lee would have been. So the racers are there in position. Her arm comes down as we get ourselves ready for the start. They'll duck down on the boards when we get the command. And for the 4th and final time in Group A of the women's, we are racing. And it's a great start from 4th place for Kristina Hrbkova. Manages to pull level with Emma Struchalova as they get their run to the first turn. But it's the trajectory in the white water that slows the pace down. And so Eliska Matuskova has a great start. Emma Struchalova's not got a bad one either. Fatova and Novotna are going to be pushing hard as well as they work their way through the first couple of corners. And Eliska Matuskova is going to have a little bit of pressure here. Out of the slalom they go. So far for Matuskova, all going well indeed for the number 1. Number 2, no problems at all for Emma Struchalova. A couple of riders having to go out wide there through the white water to avoid dropping in. But so far, so good for Matuskova. She leads in comfortable position in the lead of the race. The 17-year-old, who is the reigning world champion, out in first position. Now, they've got a 7-lap race with 2 long laps to take. The first 2, no problem. Well, it looks as though the 3rd in the line is going to be the first to take the long lap. In fact, 3 of them are going to do it all at once here. And the first one to do so is going to be Valentina Novotna. So Valentina Novotna, 21 years of age from Slovakia. My apologies, from the Czech Republic. She's part of the Jet Surf HK team. So Valentina Novotna working her way further forward. Deciding on the very first lap, I'm going to take the first of my 2 long laps. And that's when they basically take the wider trajectory and add an additional 40 seconds to their lap. Then they will rejoin the course, and then essentially they've got to do that twice, and every rider has to do it twice. It can be very interesting in the tactics as to when they choose to do that. Nothing tactical at the moment about Eliska Matuskova, just pure confidence leading the way and having a very good race of it. But the conditions of the course will be brand new to the riders compared to yesterday. This is one of those few sports where the conditions are very different from 1 lap to 2 lap to 3 laps, as the sea is obviously unpredictable. It's not like a normal racetrack where you know the conditions are going to be the same pretty much every corner. Here they could be very different when you meet them the next time around. Struchalova goes for the long lap. So too does Kristina Hubkova. So too does Elizaveta Faitova. So they've all decided in unison there to take the long lap. Oh no, sorry, that's Lotta Markova, my apologies. Faitova had already taken the long lap. So Novotna, Faitova and Kopova had already all taken the long lap together, but this time it's Struchalova, Hubkova and Markova that all go onto the long lap. So there is the number 5, Lotta Markova, 16 years of age, the rocket racing competitor. As we look back to the race leader once again, Eliska Matuskova just having a perfect run. Won the World Championship last year after an incredibly consistent season. Is the favourite to do it again in 2025. And of course, she'll also represent her nation as an individual competitor and for the Nations Cup alongside Luka Zahorski in the World Games in August in Chengdu. There is Valentina Novotna. I think she's taken the long lap a second time already, so she's clearly decided to just get both of her long laps out of the way, and then she can focus on the course. Perfectly allowed to do that. You can take the long lap whenever you wish to. The only rider that hasn't taken the long lap yet is Adela Ostrachalova, who has taken over the lead for the time being. There is Eliska Matuskova, who's also taken her long lap at the end of the 3rd. So on lap 3, Eliska Matuskova takes her first long lap. There's Emma Struchalova, not too far away from her then. And that's Kristina Hubkova, one of the new riders in the women's category this year, having stepped out of the junior category last season. And the 15-year-old for Klima Race HK, definitely getting on with things very quickly indeed. There she is, Kristina Hubkova. Now, she'll go onto the main course itself. She doesn't take the long lap a second time yet. She's just following in the wake of Emma Struchalova. There is Emma Struchalova at the moment, 16 years of age, for Jet Surf Slovakia. Definitely a potential thorn in the side of Eliska Matuskova in 2025. She got faster and faster as the day went on yesterday. And for my money, Emma Struchalova's got a real potential to go for the World Championship this year. She's just got to keep her stride confident. She's got to make sure that she bags as many points as she can from these heats. But it's really good work so far from Emma Struchalova. Alongside her there in the slalom, that is the number 4, Kristina Hubkova, just trying to stay with Struchalova at the moment. But it's that confident stance of the 16-year-old from Slovakia who's got quite a bit of experience now in the women's class. Adela Ostrachalova enjoying clear water out in front, deciding not to go for the long lap until the 4th tour. So now Matuskova back in front, Struchalova 2nd, Kristina Hubkova in 3rd. I'm not sure where Adela Ostrachalova has ended up. I think she's only 4th position, so by staying out that a little bit longer, she's actually gained herself some time here. But then I do believe that Markova, Novotna and Faitova have all pitted onto the long lap for the 2nd time. So they've got a lot of time to make up. Emma Struchalova is on the long lap for the 2nd time now as well. So for Emma Struchalova, it's all about pace and consistency now. There is Eliska Matuskova, finishing off on the top end of the course, now working her way through to the slalom. She gets her way through. This time she decides to go right. Again, it's free choice as to whether you go left or go right. So Emma Struchalova, having done both of her long laps now, just needs to focus on the pace of her journey around the course. For the last 2 laps, she can stay on the racing line. So she's rejoined in behind Adela Struchalova, but ahead of Lotta Markova. So that's exactly where she needs to be. Currently 4th on the race route. But once Kristina Hubkova and Adela Ostrachalova make their 2nd long lap, she's got a chance to move forward. And depending on how quick she can be on the course through the slaloms, she's also got a chance to close up on Eliska Matuskova. It all depends on what Matuskova does on the long lap. And of course, we've seen riders at the top of their game fall at the wrong moment. It's all just about where you manage to get the turns, where you manage to keep it together. And Emma Strichalova looking so confident at the moment. She's still got a bit of pressure there from Lotta Markova, who's not far away from her. So Eliska Matuskova has not taken to the long lap this time. So her last long lap is going to be on the very last lap. And that's a fairly decent tactic for Eliska Matuskova. Just run the race that she chooses to run. So there is the safety island that basically commands the riders onto what lap they are on. Out of the slalom goes Eliska Matuskova through the left, and then the double right-hander that finishes off the lap. And there is the command on the side of the raft. 1 lap to go. The white flag in the air tells you that there's just 1 lap left. And Eliska Matuskova has got to take the long lap on this final lap to be legal, which she, of course, will do so. Through turn 3. Left of the yellow board to go right. Right of the red board to go, right of the red buoy to go left. As we watch Kristina Hubkova, who's now in second position. She also, I believe, needs to take her second long lap on the very last lap. So she continues her journey, pushing in on the far side. Oh no, it looks like she has taken her second long lap. She's now going into the slalom. So Kristina Hubkova has already taken her second long lap then. So she will form up behind the likes of Emma Strichalova and Lotta Markova, who's actually jumped Valentina Novotná. So good work from Lotta Markova to move forward. Emma Strichalova's taken both of her long laps. Matuskova, I think, is on the long lap for the second time. Yep, there she is. She's rejoined the course now on the far side. So having taken the long lap, now it is time for Eliska Matuskova to finish this course off in a fairly rhythmic position. Strichalova has done the best she can to close up, but Matuskova is just so confident on these boards. She just doesn't have any concerns. There is Strichalova having a great duel with Lotta Markova for second position. Those two are having a great run to the line. We'll try and pick that up once Eliska Matuskova has crossed the line to finish the race. But Matuskova is having a good run of it. Now, there is Kristina Hubkova, who's had a bit of a tricky race, actually, has now dropped back behind Elizaveta Fajtova. Meanwhile, Polina Karpova has had some problems out on the course, but there is the victory. Eliska Matuskova takes the win in heat number 4, Group A. And Emma Strichalova is going to be the one who manages to get home in second place. She gets the job done in front of a resurgent Lotta Markova. Great performances there. So Emma Strichalova managing to cross the line ahead of a renewed vigour in Lotta Markova. Valentina Novotná will come through in front of Adela Ostrichalova with a difficult race there for Elizaveta Fajtova and Kristina Hubkova. They both ended up losing more time than they would have liked to. And so Polina Karpova is, I think, out of the race already, having only completed 4 of the laps up to this point. She actually completed a 3rd long lap. It's very difficult to keep track of how many long laps you've taken when you're hot out there on the course at 40 degrees Celsius. So an excellent display from Eliska Matuskova. She will start the women's final later from pole position. And don't forget, only the top 12 riders complete the lineup for the finals. So it's the top 12 riders at the end of the heats that make their way into the finals. So I think it's fair to assess the situation for the contenders. And with Eunjin Lee choosing not to start the 4th heat, that means she has not qualified for the final. Only the top 12 riders will do so. So Eliska Matuskova puts herself up to the front end of the field and into the pole position for their final later on. Eliska Matuskova takes the win in front of Emma Strichalova and Lotta Markova, just over a second and a half between the two of them. Valentina Novotná held off the charge of Adela Ostrichalova, her best result in P5. Elizaveta Fajtova in front of Kristina Hubkova, and then the retirement, sadly, for Polina Karpova. I say retirement, she actually completed 5 of the 7 laps, so she is registered as a finisher. I do apologise to Polina Karpova. That's the women's Group A heat for heat number 4. Now they will send another bunch of competitors out onto the circuit for heat 4, Group B. And it's another very impressive collection of athletes. Aneta Shtukalova, the vice world champion, lining up in pole position for this one ahead of Mariana Navarova, the original pole position qualifier, and the new sensation in the women's category, Sara Zubarova, straight out of the junior girl last year, starting 3rd for this one. Linda Lukscheider is P4 from Rosalia Janora, Barbara Kororova, Natalie Kashtakova, then Yue Nijin of China, and Dinara Ibrahimova finishing off the field. So down in the dry pit, the juniors are recovering after their very intense heat there. So too, to the right of your picture, is Lorenzo Tanda, who's getting himself ready for the stock category a little bit later on. Yes, Lorenzo, you have well and truly been spotted there in the dry pit, relaxing. Too right as well. In this heat, you want to keep as cool as humanly possible. And full credit, I have to say, in these swelteringly hot conditions to the officials who are keeping an eye on the situation, and a massive well done to the broadcasts around the course in their various posts who are trying desperately to keep cool in these tricky situations and bring you all the action as it happens. I do not envy them, but fair play to them. They are made of stern steel and their claws are sharp to give us the amazing footage that you've got here on the beach at Fujairah. So the second heat is going to be an interesting one. Aneta Stukalova has not looked perfect throughout this week, has had to recover to get herself up to the sharp end. And actually, Mariana Navarrova was fantastic in qualifying. I spoke to her this morning. She's actually had some difficulties with her back and her legs, as a lot of intensity is put into the back and the leg muscles in these races. And we actually saw during Heat 3 yesterday, Mariana Navarrova actually struggling to reposition her back into the correct position so that she could get the most out of it. So it is a very physical sport, this. Don't forget that these are 20 kilogram boards, 100cc engines channeling out 15 brake horsepower. So these boards will do a top speed of 70 kilometers an hour, but they won't reach that on this particular course because the waves are choppy, the wind is high, so they'll still be pushing around 50, maybe 55 kilometers an hour top speed on these boards. That is fast. If you hit the water at the wrong angle at that speed, you are losing teeth. It is that simple. So the hand goes up in the air for Aneta Stukalova. She controls the pace. When her hand goes down, that means that she's ready for the start. And all 9 of the competitors are there ready to go. So let's see if we are going to have an intriguing run down to the first corner. Stukalova's hand goes down. We are ready for the start. They now wait for the command, and off we go. And Aneta Stukalova gets a brilliant start. No worries at all. Going to be a tricky one for second place, though, because that looks like a very feisty Sara Zubarova trying to get level and around the outside of Mariana Navarrova, who holds the position. She runs out wide, jerks out. Sara Zubarova decides to go right compared to the left option. So as the riders work their way through the slalom, this is going to be intriguing to see who gets out first. An absolutely rapid Mariana Navarrova might even be able to get out in front. There's a little bit of a wobble there, I'm afraid, for the 5 of Rosalia Janora, the 15-year-old Polish rider. Manages to pick it up together, but it is going to be tricky and physical when they get back out onto the turf. So they continue on their way further forward. And the number 1 is not the leader. Mariana Navarrova has dug deep and pushed out ahead of Aneta Stukalova. So Mariana Navarrova has found something strong in the slalom and has taken the lead. So Aneta Stukalova has no option. She's got to go for the long lap to try and leapfrog past Mariana Navarrova. But great work from Navarrova to launch into the lead of this race. The 18-year-old for CMS Racing, so confident in qualifying, had a tricky day yesterday, but now, this morning, she has had her Weetabix, she has done the job, and she is into the lead. So now it's up to this lady, the Vice World Champion, Aneta Stukalova, to try and work her way back into the lead. The best way to do that was through the slalom and out through to the long lap, I should say, and then back out onto the course. So she's now there, but there is the lady who has charged through to the lead. Oh, careful, Mariana. Really is pushing herself here through the slalom. She did tell me that she's been having issues with her leg muscles and her back, but she really wants to come back for a victory today. She wants to put herself back into the form that she was in on Friday to get the pole position. So chasing her down is the new sensation of the women's category, Sara Zubarova. She got the overall pole position in qualifying in her group. So she was the second quickest rider of any of the women competitors for the Motoshop Zubor, the family team. But this is her first weekend in the women's category, having been in Junior Girl last season, fighting for the title. So this is incredibly impressive from Sara Zubarova to have done what she has done over the last 24 hours or so. Absolutely incredible, the kind of pace that she's been able to show. She wasn't even the champion in last year's Junior Girl category. She missed out on the title by 24 points to Kristina Hubkova. So Zabarova's definitely done her homework over the winter and is now so much more full of confidence. Now Mariana Navarova looks like she's unlocking the kind of pace we saw in Friday. This is much more confident stance from Mariana Navarova. She goes into the slalom, still chased down by Zubarova. You're going to see so much from Sara Zubarova in 2025. She's really turned the corner in her development. As through the starting gate once again. That's Mariana Navarova and Sara Zubarova just continuing that pace up front, deciding to leave their long laps for later. Already Shtukalova, Kolarova and UIM have decided to put their long laps down. So a really exciting situation for the contenders. So now they've just got to keep on pushing on and do a good job. So now the competitors will continue to make good work of things on the far side. But this is all about Mariana Navarova having the confidence to push with her own intensity to get clear of Aneta Shtukalova. But Shtukalova's got so much experience. And she's going to be, oh no, Mariana Navarova pushes too far. Oh, that's such an unfortunate moment for Navarova, leading the race with so much confidence. And unfortunately on this occasion, she just finds a little bit too much in the waves. And so Mariana Navarova falls from the lead. We did say that it can happen at any time. Doesn't matter how good you are, doesn't matter how experienced you are. All it takes is that one wrong trajectory, that one wrong angle. And unfortunately, Mariana Navarova gets caught out. Such an unfortunate moment for the 18-year-old. She's such an incredible rider. But the waves have completely changed over the last 48 hours. So it's going to be Sara Zubarova that picks up the pieces. But this lady, Aneta Shtukalova, has now been given license to go and take the victory away. She's got both of her long laps out of the way, I think. So Aneta Shtukalova has decided to just focus on her objectives. There is Mariana Navarova trying to get back to what she was at before. But that's the problem. Once you fall once, the psychology of a rider's head is that you've just got to try and go even faster in order to try and maintain it. She's gone on to the long lap. But the problem is when you make one mistake, you then just try and go faster and faster to make up the time you've lost. And that breeds more mistakes. So she's got to chill. She's got to get herself back in the game. Meanwhile, Aneta Shtukalova is just doing what she needs to do, just winding herself in through to the slalom. And there is Mariana Navarova just behind her now as well. So that's the amount of time lost by Navarova. Such an unfortunate moment for her. But that's racing. They all know just how tricky it can be at the best of times. So the timing screen has not updated recently. It still believes that Navarova is leading the race, but that is only because she came through having not taken the long lap on the last tour. So now it will correct herself because not only has she taken the long lap, but she's also had a slip up. So there is Mariana Navarova trying to get back into the form that she was in before the slip up. But leading the way now is Aneta Shtukalova in front of Sara Zubarova. And as a result of her performance so far, Aneta Shtukalova has been able to take the long lap before Zubarova. It's looking so good for the Vice World Champion as Mariana Navarova tries to fight her way back into contention. She's currently in 4th place behind Barbara Kolarova. So that's the kind of time that she's lost. 2 positions essentially, well, 3 if you count Aneta Shtukalova. But I would argue that the pace that Shtukalova has shown so far this week, it would have been hard for Navarova to maintain that. So Shtukalova still having just such a smooth run here. I'll tell you who's really struggling in the women's category in this particular race is the ever-consistent Linda Lukscheider. It's not gone well for her so far. Currently down in 6th position. I wonder if she's elected to take the long lap twice early doors. Yes, in fact, she has done that. But even having said that, she's currently behind UIM, the Chinese racer. So I think Linda Lukscheider is currently dealing with some problems out there, as too is the teenager Rosalia Yanora, who has stepped out of the junior girl category last year and risen up into the women's. So I would suspect that there's a few problems out there. Aneta Shtukalova takes the long lap, gives the lead over to Sara Zubarova, who will only lead for 1 lap because she has also got to take the long lap. As we watch Mariana Navarova trying her best to come back at it. Interesting tactics then as The number 2 rider there, oh sorry, the number 1 rider I should say, Aneta Stukalova, is currently chasing down another rider. Now who is that in front of her? I wonder if is that Natalie Kashlikova? She's following in the wake, but she should be able to get back onto the course in front of Sara Zubarova. The final long lap is being taken there as that's Mariana Navarova going across the line to start her final tour. But she has risen back up the order as a result of the second long lap. So Aneta Stukalova will retake the lead because Zubarova, Navarova and Natalie Kashlikova are all going to take their final long laps. In fact, it was Kashlikova that Stukalova was trying desperately not to trip over. They've all taken the long lap, and that's going to put Aneta Stukalova back into the lead of the race, I'm sure. Look back, there is Sara Zubarova. She tried her best to catch her, but Aneta Stukalova is so strong in her best rhythm. She'll work her way out of the slalom for the last time. And just as we saw from Eliska Matuskova, the reigning world champion, the vice world champion, Aneta Stukalova is still on good form herself. And so she will come through to finish off in the final couple of points of the reckoning. And Aneta Stukalova comes through to take the victory in front of the ever-impressive Sara Zubarova. No worries at all then as the finishers come through. Aneta Stukalova is your victor. Sara Zubarova in second place. I think it's going to be Navarova who manages to come back in fine style to grab that third position, unless Barbara Kodorova has had a cleaner run on the final lap. We'll get the update very shortly indeed. But certainly Aneta Stukalova hanging on in front of Sara Zubarova. And Kodorova did come through in that third position slot. Full credit to Sara Zubarova. She was only 4.5 seconds back from Aneta Stukalova after 7 laps. That is very good work indeed. So Navarova in P4, 5th for UIM. That's her best race of the week. And then Linda Lukscheider and Rosalia Janora, with Natalie Kashlikova having to settle for 8th position on this occasion. And Dinara Ibrahimova down at the back. So there is the women's heat 4 Group B provisional result. Aneta Stukalova only 4.5 ahead of Sara Zubarova. That is one talented rider. Barbara Kodorova and Mariana Navarova struggling after her fall down to 4th place. UIM is 5th. Best result for her this week so far from Linda Lukscheider and Rosalia Janora. And then Natalie Kashlikova struggles to 8th place with Dinara Ibrahimova down in 9th. So a very tricky pair of races then in the women's category. They certainly gave us plenty to talk about. Now we go from the women's class to the masters class. And we've got the senior competitors in the field now. All running stock boards, of course, but the main point to take into this is that all of the riders are over the age of 35. Oh, no, sorry, it's the stock category first. My apologies. The Masters will come later. So it's the stock category that is out on the course now. And that is Anthony Squire and Hassan Boabas that will run on the front of the grid. Adam Ficek and Adam Januszek from Jan Travnicek and Jan Matoshka. Ismail Kaptanoglu, Abdullah Al-Blushi, and then the rookie riders, David Krichka, Tanton Huangranke, and Adam Kolar. So with all of the contenders getting themselves ready then, they've shuffled the order for today's running in the 4th heat. And that just gives a couple of competitors a chance to work away a little bit more often. So now we're going to see how things continue to move forward. And it'll be an interesting one to see how things continue. But we're definitely going to see another resurgent form race in the stock category as the riders venture out onto the course. The officials are just getting themselves into position now as well with the 2 jet skis. So a fascinating scenario then for the contenders, with the stocks moving up ahead of the elites and the masters dropping after the elites now. But Anthony Squire, the American rider, is going to be one to watch out for in this one. He's been a very strong competitor over the course of the week. Took 2 wins out of 3 earlier on in the competition. So good to see Anthony Squire, the young man from Western Salem in North Carolina, working his way further forward. So an interesting scenario then for the contenders. But the stock and the stock rookies on the Merlin Plus boards, they race together again until the afternoon session, when the stock rookies will have their own race compared to the stock contenders, who will have their own. And don't forget, only the top 12 riders managed to make it through to the final. So with 16 competitors in the stock category, 4 of them are going to be plumb out of luck. And so it's going to be an interesting one to see who manages to make it through to the final later on in the stock category. Certainly Anthony Squire is looking odds-on favourite to be pole position for it, although he has got a little bit of pressure from the man in the other group. That is Down Kim, the Vice World Champion in stock, the reigning World Champion in Master, the only rider who does 2 classes in one event. That really is quite an incredible amount of commitment from the Korean rider Down Kim. Had the pleasure of dining with him last night at the opening season gala dinner. Down Kim, a very charming man, 41 years of age, very competitive indeed as he continues his run. The riders should be focusing on getting ready, not waving to the drone. Love the fun and games that we have down here in MotoSurf. A lot of these racers are just racing because they love it. They have no ambitions to do anything particularly spectacular. They just want to race and have a huge laugh. There are those who have the ambition, who want to race and get victories, get world titles, get trophies, and get some incredible plaudits from this very interesting sport indeed. So it looks like the safety crew are just attending to a buoy, just trying to replace one of them. I think it's the penultimate corner that there was a buoy that was out of whack. And so as a result, they've had to reset that part of the course by swapping the buoys over. And that's how it's done, folks. So if a buoy fails, you send a technician out onto the course with the jet ski and they swap it over, and then the course is ready to race again. And it's incredible the amount of work they do to do that, because it literally takes only about 80 seconds or so from leaving the shore to getting to the buoy to swapping it over and to returning back to its original position. That is incredible work. I think that should be a sport in and of itself. I'd commentate on that. So the contenders getting themselves ready then. The man with the arm in the air is Anthony Squire from Winston-Salem in North Carolina in the United States. A man who is on the brink of realizing his best season so far in 2025. He really has started this weekend in fantastic fashion. If he can continue this up through Turkey, through Italy, through Croatia, all the way to Macau, this could be Anthony Squire's year to really excel and shine. He would dearly love to be in that position to do so. He's going to be representing the United States in the World Games in August later this year. Very excited indeed for the prospect of getting that sorted. So now Anthony Squire will lead the field around. And it's going to be a very aggressive start from him out of the blocks. Hassan Bouabbas, the young man from Kuwait, is going to be hustling him down to the first couple of corners. We're going to see some really exciting competition now from these competitors. The stock category is one of the toughest in the entire world of MotoSurf. You take the board out of the box, you race it. That's simple. Nothing else is allowed to be changed. So that is a false start. So they'll go around again and they will form up into their row once more. So Anthony Squire and Hassan Bouabbas, 2 men who are really motivated to get this victory done. And especially now that last year's champion, Min Song Kim, has elected not to compete in the first round of the championship. I think he's got his focus purely on the World Games in Chengdu. So some riders have actually chosen this year to be a year where they'll focus on the World Games preparation rather than the World Championship. And they'll be focusing on their own individual nations championships as well, because there are plenty of competitions around the world in MotoSurf for all of the individual championships. There's a European crown, there's an Asian crown, and of course there are national championships as well. But this is the World Championship where all the best MotoSurf riders in the world gather together. Anthony Squire leading the stock and stock rookies around. That looks like a pretty perfect start to me as Hassan Bouabbas gets a little bit of airtime in his preparation. That's about as perfect a sight as you can expect to see in MotoSurf. And the drone pilot has captured it superbly. Now we wait for the moment. Anthony Squire's arm goes down. Are we going to go racing? We're going to charge forward to the first turn. Around to the outer perimeter of the buoy. It's gone too far, hasn't it? We very nearly tripped over a buoy there. So I think we're going to go round again. No, we are not. We're going to drop forward. And Hassan Bouabbas has actually got a better start than the pole sitter. So now they've got to go and run around the outer perimeter. Anthony Squire trying to hold the inside line. He's going to manage to get the trajectory and he'll tuck back in. An aggressive start from both Bouabbas and Anthony Squire. But Squire holds his nerve. And as they go into the slaloms for the first time, Anthony Squire sorts it out and manages to hold on to the lead. Hassan Bouabas is giving chase, but that was dictatorial from Anthony Squire. He needed to hold his nerve there. Second place is going to be tricky to sort out as Hassan Bouabas has already got pressure from the men behind. What a start, though, from Anthony Squire. He needed to be authoritarian, and that's exactly how he played it. Bouabas is now second. He's going to have pressure from Adam Ficek and Adam Janusek on the first lap for sure. But Anthony Squire needed to show his hand and did so in that first turn to the slalom. So Ficek and Janusek are going to be chasing down Bouabas, and the first man to go on to the long lap amongst the leaders. Try and figure out who that is from a distance. It's tricky to see. And that is the 3. That is Adam Ficek. So Adam Ficek has decided to go onto the long lap first. Big opportunities coming then for the riders in this particular category. And Ficek looks fairly confident. He was already very racy when he battled away there with Hassan Bouabas. Dips down, careful. You do not want to go into the drink on the first lap. Even though you've taken the long lap, you've still got plenty of time to make up. Anthony Squire looking so smooth out there in the sharp end. This is exactly what he wanted to do, and he has done so in fantastic fashion. And it's a really exciting run. Out in the front end of the field, that is Adam Janusek, now moving into third position, chasing down Hassan Bouabas. So now it's all going to be about the pace from the competitors around. Through to the ESs then, into the slalom. Anthony Squire really starting to pick up some speed now. On the long lap himself now, Anthony Squire. Wanting to get the long lap out of the way. He's got Hassan Bouabas right with him, so he looks over his shoulder. Oh, right, Bouabas came with me. Now, why is that? Is he trying to get under my skin? No chance. I'm not going to be shaken. So Anthony Squire returns back to the course. Bouabas has gone with him, and that's Adam Ficek right behind him as a result. So watching them come through, Hassan Bouabas has got a lot of pressure here from Adam Ficek. Looked as though we had Janusek, Kuchka, Wangrangranki and Matoshka all taking the long lap at the same time there behind Anthony Squire. Only 6 laps of the course and 2 long laps to take. So it will be a tricky one to see how the contenders continue from this point forward. But there is Anthony Squire. Oh, nearly drops it in the slalom. Anthony Squire under so much pressure here. He's never had it so good, but that's when you start to make those errors. So Anthony Squire's got to be careful. Got to be aggressive, but he's also got to be very particular about which way he goes through each of these turns. Hassan Bouabas is still on him, that's fairly sure, but Adam Ficek is not far away either. One mistake, one dropped buoy, one trip up, and it's game over in a race this competitive. Squire, Bouabas, Ficek, Janusek, Matoshka. And we're still waiting to see what the rookie riders will do. Right, Squire's decided to shake it up. He's gone onto the long lap, and so too has Adam Ficek. So they both go to the long lap. Interestingly, the rookie contenders, David Kuchka and Danton Wangrangranki, who both took victories yesterday, have elected to go further on. They've not gone onto the long lap just yet, so they're going to leave their long laps till later by the look of it. They've got to take 2 of them. Squire and Ficek have already taken their second long laps just after the half distance, so they can now focus on the course itself. And that's, again, really smart thinking from Anthony Squire, who's going to try and close up here on Jan Matoshka. So Anthony Squire may have a little bit of an issue here trying to get around Jan Matoshka. Timing is everything in this sport. If he gets held up by Matoshka, then Hassan Bouabas might just get a chance to close up on him. This is not easy now for Anthony Squire. Following in the white water of Jan Matoshka, this is going to slow him down a little bit. This could hand the advantage to the Kuwaiti Hassan Bouabas. A giant killing effort is now needed here from Anthony Squire. He's gone into the slalom, but he's gone a different way to Matoshka. That works out in his favor. Here's Hassan Bouabas going on to the long lap. So this is where we find out how much time Anthony Squire lost stuck behind Jan Matoshka. Can Bouabas pick up the pieces on the long lap? There's Squire going over the line. They're going to meet together at turn 3. So who's going to get out of the long lap first? Will it be Bouabas or will it be Anthony Squire? It's going to be close. And there is Anthony. Oh no, that's Ficek. Ficek going parallel with Hassan Bouabas. And Bouabas just hangs on to second place. They weren't quite able to eclipse Anthony Squire. But that is how close it is now for the victory. There's Squire, there's Bouabas, there's Ficek. There's nothing in it. This is one of the closest races we have seen in the stock category this week. And Adam Ficek now has every opportunity here to take on Hassan Bouabas of Kuwait. They're going to run round to the far side and they will get to the slalom. Who's going to have the pace and the confidence in the slalom? Oh, big error from Adam Ficek. He gets a face full of boy, but he goes right as Bouabas goes left in the slalom. Has he got the pace and the confidence to overhaul Bouabas in the slalom? Anthony Squire still keeping it nice and tidy. For the moment, Bouabas has still got second, but Ficek is still prepared to attack. They've got one more lap to go as David Krichka is leading this race, but he's got one more long lap to take. So these are the true leaders. Bouabas, Squire. Bouabas chasing down the American Anthony Squire, and there's Adam Ficek, who's really looking hungry in third place. This is so tricky for Bouabas and Ficek because they've got no choice now but to run in the white water of Anthony Squire, and Bouabas making a slight error there on the buoy. Keeps it upright. And down in the water, who's that that's gone? So that's right in the path of the raceway. And that could cause an error. It's Ficek! It's Adam Ficek! So Ficek goes down in third. Well, that's him out of the battle for the victory then. So Anthony Squire still leads it, but Hassan Bouabas is still trying to catch him. They've now got just the slalom to go. And then the final three turns. Squire looks confident. Bouabas goes the other way. Push it, gentlemen. Come on, come on. Anthony Squire trying to keep it nice and level. Bouabas is still slightly behind. Squire comes out of the slalom first. No worries at all. 3 turns to go. And Anthony Squire has his hand in the air. Don't celebrate yet. All it takes is one mistake as Anthony Squire will hold on, and he does take the victory over Hassan Bouabas. My goodness me. That was one of the best races in the stock category we've seen this week. And Anthony Squire feels the euphoria of the occasion. That was so tough to stay measured in front of Bouabas and Ficek. They were throwing everything at him, but he would not be shaken. Anthony Squire has come of age. Poor Hassan Bouabas, frustration in second place. I had him. I nearly had him. And you could see the weight of the frustration on Hassan Bouabas as he falls off the board into the ocean. I really thought I had him there. I could have had that. But Anthony Squire was not going to crumble under the strain. Fantastic racing. Anthony Squire just hangs on from Hassan Bouabas. Adam Janusek picks up third after the fall from Adam Ficek. David Kuchka gets the rookie victory in 5th overall from Jan Travnicek, Adam Kolar, Danton Huangogranke, and Jan Matoshka, who finishes in front of Ismail Kaptanoglu and Abdullah Al-Blouchi. So that is the stock heat for Group A. Group B will be after this. But Anthony Squire throws his hat into the ring as the contender for the top spot. It's been a long time since an American has been at the sharp end of the stock category, and a great chance for Anthony Squire. So now we get ourselves ready for the same category. It's the stock race, but it's Group B and another group of contenders. And of course, they're all trying to get themselves into the final. 16 riders in stock trying to get into the stock final with only 12 places available. All of the stock rookies will get there because there's only 7 of them. But it's Down Kim, back to pole position, alongside Damian Kadlec, Shangmao Zhu of China, the Swede Hannes Hultberg, and then Miroslav Kurbs from Tahi Han, Mohamed Al-Tamimi, Suchi Leong, and then the 4 rookies in this particular race, Fares Ramadan, Mike Michailidis, Lorenzo Tanda, and the Turkish rider Ender Jorgenschila. 6 laps once again, 2 long laps. The 4th heat for Group B. And now the big question is a very simple one. Can anybody crack Down Kim? Down Kim has only made 1 mistake all week, realistically. And that was in the Masters first race when he had that problem. Fell off the board twice and ended up having to call it. He's won both of his Masters heats since then. He's won every stock heat. So Down Kim, just relentlessly impressive. The 41-year-old from South Korea He's in the form of his life. He is the Fernando Alonso of MotoSurf, if you like. He just does not age. I bet there's a painting in his attic that keeps changing, because this man is just euphorically good. But it's all going to come down to his opponents to see if they can get one over on him here in Fujairah. Fantastic city this as well. My first time to Fujairah. 120,000 residents live here. May not be as big a metropolis as the likes of Dubai and Abu Dhabi, and certainly not necessarily a staple on the minds of everybody globally, but this is a fantastic area. The mosque that is here is the second biggest in the United Arab Emirates. It can be seen from pretty much any decent high-level building in the entirety of Fujairah, almost like the Eiffel Tower in Paris then, from that perspective. And the contenders here have really enjoyed proper, authentic Arabian cuisine, fantastic hospitality, and amazing activity as well. There's all sorts of great things to do here in Fujairah. Mountain climbing, bullfighting, and of course, water sports. Plenty of it here on the East Coast. We had competitors rowing alongside the course yesterday. Fortunately, they didn't intrude. But the Fujairah Marine Club has been hosting many events in many different disciplines of water sports since 1999. So 26 years of incredible sporting discipline in the United Arab Emirates. And a fantastic event, this one. And there is a real passion and there's a real desire to grow the sport of MotoSurf in the United Arab Emirates, not just from the Union Internationale Motonautique that governs the sport, but also the patronage of His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Hamad Al Sharqi, who is the Crown Prince of Fujairah. There is a real passion and a real desire to get this sport in fantastic fashion. So it's really exciting to see how everybody is going to get underway here with the stock categories going in for a strong position for all of the contenders. So we're getting ourselves ready for the start. And we are going to get ourselves in position for all of the contenders up at the sharp end of the field. But we're going to have a really great start here from Down Kim. Wants to get himself into position. Now they've got to have to call this one a false start, I'm afraid. Not quite formed up. And this was talked about quite at length on the riders' briefing on Friday. They made it very clear there's a real stringency to make sure that everything is even and fair. They've got to make sure that the rear of the board is parallel to the front of the board of the rider adjacent to them. And if there's too big a gap, too many times in the row, they will just throw a false start to it and they've got to form up again. We had a real difficulty yesterday, actually, in the final race of the stock category at the very end of the day. They had about 3 false starts. And interestingly enough, it was Down Kim who was pole position for that one. Now, that is not to suggest that it was Down Kim that caused the issue, but it's just an ironic set of coincidences that it's the race that he's on pole position for that we struggle to get started. But there's a number of factors that come into the start. It's not just one person. He has the responsibility, of course, in pole position to monitor and control the pace of the field, but the responsibility is on the other riders to make sure they're in the correct position. They've done it several times yesterday. They know what position they're in because the number of the shorts that they're wearing tells them what position they're in, up from 1 through 9, and then they've got a letter if they are 10, 11 and 12, so A, B and C. And the reason they do that is because it's easier to denote a letter from a distance than it is to denote double digits. So they've obviously decided that that's the way to go through. And I have to say, it makes my job very easy indeed by comparison to what it would be. So I'm very pleased about it. Down Kim, getting himself ready from the pole position. Let's see if he can make a good start of it straight out of the blocks. He's going to have a tough mission to try and fend off from the hard-charging Damian Kadlec, who looks really motivated today, as does the Chinese racer Zhang Maozhu. They pass the boy on the far side. We wait for the command. They will dip down and then they will charge for the first boy, which is on the entrance to the slalom on the outer perimeter. Are we racing? No, we're not. And that's the second time in a row. And again, the false starts are in the same race that is held in pole position by Down Kim. Now, I don't know what the reason is for the lack of fluidity here, but for some reason, yet again, it's a false start. We've got Down Kim, Dominic Kadlec, Zhang Maozhu, Hannes Hultberg, Miroslav Kurbs, Tahi Han, Mohamed Al-Tamimi, Suchi Leong, and then the rookie riders, Fares Ramadan, Mike Michailidis, Lorenzo Tanda, and Ender Jorgen Schiele. I couldn't put my finger on whatever particular element it is that's causing us these repetitive false starts, but we're certainly getting yet another one in there. So those last couple of riders that are trying to find their position on the starting grid for the final. And don't forget, of course, that there are going to be 4 riders in the stock category that will be knocked out of the competition after this race, because it's only the top 12 competitors in the individual categories that will get through. So in the women's category, it's only the top 12 that make it, also in the Masters and also in the stock. Across the juniors, across the stock rookies, and across the elite, there are enough competitors that everyone will get a place in the final. But the elimination for the last time is about to happen here in the stock category, as that is the number 6 rider, Tahi Han of South Korea, just getting himself back into his original position. Everyone's got to form up. Now, pace it. Just be confident, but just be calm. There's no point charging forward until you're ready to do so. Just keep yourself in the line. Measure your pace. These riders have done it several times before this week. Looks pretty good to me, but they've got to make sure that they keep it nice and even. They've got to concentrate. One rider just out of position there. That is the 8, I think. That is Suchi Leong. Manages to get himself back into position, the Macanese rider. They pass the boy that measures the start. They'll get the command, and then they'll be able to go racing. We'll wait for the charge to go forward. Now we're going racing. That's more like it. And it's a fantastic start at the front from Damian Kadlec. He's going to draw level with Down Kim, but can he overhaul him round the outside? That's going to be the tricky nature of this race now. So far, so good for Down Kim, though. Kadlec can't overhaul him. So as they work their way through to the slalom, everybody keeping it nice and measured, but they're going to have a really tough rush now to try and keep themselves in the mix. So out in first position. No worries at all for Down Kim as he holds the line as he works his way through. Second position, it's going to be a tough one now between Damian Kadlec and Zhang Maozhu. The Swedish rider Hannes Hultberg, who's been getting quicker and quicker as the race weekend goes on, now finds himself in a very competitive position indeed. But as the riders work their way through to turn 3, up towards 4, now they'll make the decision about the long lap. And the leader goes through, but I tell you what, Damian Kadlec is looking competitive already. He decides to take the long lap, as does Fares Ramadan. So Damian Kadlec in front of Fares Ramadan. They take the long lap together. Good start and an aggressive start in this race already then, as Down Kim has taken an early lead in this race. No major concerns for him at the moment. But Damian Kadlec decides, right, if I can't get him on the start, I'll get him on the long lap. So he's got a little bit of time to make up. Now, who's that having an issue? That looked to me like Ender Jorgen Schiele, I think. So he's obviously had a fall on the start initially, I think, and then obviously had to sort of limp back to get back up to speed again, and then he's taken the long lap. Out in front, though, Down Kim, number 1, looking very confident indeed as he runs clear into the lead. There is the 3. That is Zhang Maozhu. So Zhang Maozhu having a very steady race of it now, following in the white water of Down Kim. Returning back to the course, that's Damian Kadlec. Good performance so far from him. Be careful, he got a complete board full of water there. Didn't get the trajectory right. He was very lucky to stay upright on the board then, because I'm afraid to say he took the turn a little bit too deep. And as a result, the board went under the water there. He managed to stay upright, but that's cost him a good 3 or 4 seconds. So a big issue there for Damian Kadlec. That's going to be hard to come back from. He gets parallel, and that is how close he was able to run. Oh, and that's an issue for one of the Rocket Racing competitors. That is Jorgen Schiele. So Ender Jorgen Schiele. Right, back onto the long lap then for the number 2, Damian Kadlec. He almost managed to get past Down Kim, but he couldn't quite make it. Now, if Damian Kadlec had not had that moment where the board went under the water, he would be leading this race, because that cost him a couple of seconds, and that would have been his lead. So he's now got to try and bounce back from that. He was clearly very quick indeed on the long lap. So now he's got to do it again to beat this man, Down Kim. There is the hard-charging Tahi Han of South Korea. making a very good effort of things. But a really exciting situation. A very tough charge for it. Now, Tahihan is going to take the long lap there on the far side of the course. You know that because when they come through turn 4, they put their hand in the air to warn the other riders, I'm going straight on. So a bit of a challenge as Down Kim works his way through the chicane at the beginning of the lap. He's still got pressure, by the way, from Zhang Maozhu. Or has he? Because I think Zhang Maozhu has actually carried on the lap. He hasn't actually taken a long lap yet. No, he hasn't. So Zhang Maozhu takes over the lead of the race for the time being. There is Down Kim. What's he going to do in terms of the long lap? Well, he's not taking it just yet for the second time. Meanwhile, Damian Kadlec has taken the long lap for the second time, and that puts him down in 7th for the moment. And no, actually, it puts him even further back than that. It puts him down to 9th position behind Mike Michailidis. But let's not forget that Damian Kadlec is the first rider to take the long lap twice. This man, Down Kim, who he's trying to catch, has taken the long lap once, but he needs to take it a second time before we really get to see where Kadlec is going to be in relation to Down Kim. Now, Down Kim's gone. Down Kim's in trouble! Down Kim's gone into the water! That completely changes the face of the stock category. Down Kim was looking so good for the victory in this class, and now the drop has put him down and whack. Anthony Squire must be grinning from ear to ear like a Cheshire cat on the shoreline. Down Kim, big mistake for the Korean. Now, whether that was a problem with him or whether that was a problem with the board, it doesn't matter. It's thrown him out of the contention for the victory in this race. And Down Kim has now got to recover. There's the Swede, Hannes Holtberg. He can benefit from this as well. He can put himself back into the top 3 if he gets an opportunity. And there is Damian Kadlec, who will be beaming from ear to ear if he figures out that Down Kim has got into the water. The thing is, of course, they're on different parts of the racetrack to each other, so they don't necessarily know that that's what's happened. So Down Kim manages to get past, sorry, that is Damian Kadlec, I should say, getting past Su Chi Leong, who gets well out of the way and doesn't cause an issue there for Damian Kadlec. But it's not over. Even though Down Kim has had a fall, there's still plenty of opportunities for the other riders to have issues as well. There is Zhang Maozhu, who still leads this race. He's finally taken his first long lap. So he is the latest rider to do it, along with Faraz Ramadan, who is the leader in the rookie category at the moment, trying to stay well ahead of Mike Michailidis and Lorenzo Tanda. And this is tricky stuff now. As around the far side of the course goes the number 2. That is Damian Kadlec. I think there was a rider pulling off to the side there, and Kadlec is having a look at it to try and see what's going on. So there is the 3. That is Zhang Maozhu, the Chinese rider. And down in the water again. We've got another rider down. Now, who is it this time? That doesn't... I'm trying to make out which rider it is. The board is upside down, unfortunately, so I can't figure out... No, it is the right way up, and my apologies. But the rider in question hasn't recovered. Don't tell me it's Down Kim a second time as he tries to get back into speed position. No, that is the 8. So that is a rather unfortunate incident there for Su Chi Leong, the Macau racer. So Su Chi Leong having an incident there in the slalom. So tricky. The waves are so choppy compared to what they were. As Damian Kadlec, is he on the long lap a 3rd time? Well, that is fascinating. Damian Kadlec, I thought he'd already taken the long lap twice. He has. And yet he's taken it a 3rd time. What's going on for Kadlec? Has he miscounted? Well, this is baffling. They've only got a 6th lap race. Kadlec had already taken the long lap twice, and he's done it again. So a very strange situation there for Kadlec. I'm fairly sure that he has taken the long lap a 3rd time. Now that could hand the victory to the Chinese racer Zhang Maozhu. Kadlec is struggling here. Yeah, Kadlec has got a problem. Kadlec is cruising. And this is great news for the Chinese racer Zhang Maozhu, who's got his hand in the air. The checkered flag goes his way, and Zhang Maozhu, I think, is going to have this. So Kadlec has had an issue somewhere along the line, and Zhang Maozhu comes through for the victory. He can't believe his luck. The Chinese rider has got it done. Both Down Kim and Damian Kadlec hit trouble. Faraz Ramadan comes through for 2nd position to win the rookie race. But unbelievably, Damian Kadlec and Down Kim have had problems. Now, Kadlec, I can't believe he's miscounted. So Damian Kadlec had the victory pretty much on his own there. Down Kim comes through to finish up in... Well, Down Kim did not finish the race, apparently, so... Well, he certainly hasn't finished yet if he hasn't finished, but... Well, I'm in a state of confusion here. Kadlec has come across the line in 6th position, having taken 3 long laps. So Kadlec miscounted. I cannot believe it. What a dramatic way for this race to conclude in the stock category, because Kadlec has definitely taken the long lap 3 times. He's only supposed to take it twice. So with Down Kim not completing the finish of the course, and Damian Kadlec taking the long lap 3 times, it hands the victory to the Chinese ace, Zhang Maozhu. What a dramatic race in Heat 4 Group B. So Zhang Maozhu gets the victory in front of the leading rookie, Fares Ramadan. That is an out-of-date timing screen, I should point out. Hannes Hultberg is actually in 3rd position, according to my timing screen, in front of Tahi Han and Lorenzo Tando in a brilliant 5th place. Then Damian Kadlec. There you go, there's the updated timing screen. Mike Michailidis is 7th behind Kadlec. Miroslav Kurbs in 8th. Mohamed Al-Tamimi is 9th. Kim Down did not finish the race in 10th position, ahead of either Ender Jorgenschila and Suchi Long. But look at Kadlec. Look at the long laps. Everybody's got 2, except for Kadlec, who's got 3. So Damian Kadlec did indeed take the long lap 3 times. What a mistake to make at this point in proceedings. You've got to try and figure out how many times he'd take the long lap, but Kadlec completely miscounted. So he basically gifted the victory to Zhang Maozhu. Well, there's a lot of pressure on the riders, and in these hot conditions, concentration is very tough to maintain. So it's a very tricky nature of racing this, and a very, very tough competition. But speaking of top competitions, now we go to the kings of the sport. It's time for the Grand Prix racing of MotoSurf, the elite category where the best racers in the world reside. And the top 3 riders in the world are in the top 3 positions of the grid. Lukas Jaworski, Alex Lukscheider, and Matthias Novotny. The chasing pack, Matej Kofisek and Oliver Nevada. Then Dominik Kadlec, Daniel Provaznik, Jiri Wolf, and Dennis Berda will be giving chase. A really tough race ahead of us now, because we've seen all 3 riders having a very solid run of it. But we're going to see some really tough action out on the course, as everybody is going to be putting in an excellent showcase here. But Jaworski, Lukscheider and Novotny, the 3 top riders in the world right now, and they'll be fighting for the gold medal in the World Games at Chengdu, of course. Only one of them will represent the Czech Republic in the Nations Cup at the World Games. That is going to be Lukas Jaworski, the 6 times world champion. But the elite race is always the one worth watching, and as you can see, the fans and the competitors from the other classes are filling up the seats in the dry pit. Even Mariana Navarova wants to come and sit down and have a look at what's going on in the elite category, because this is the race that everybody wants to watch, the one that everyone signs up for. The elite category, the best racers in the world. Jaworski, Novotny, and Lukscheider. This is such an incredible competition with these riders. They give us such entertainment value. And it really is wondrous to see the kind of battles that we get from them. Yesterday we had 2 victories out of 3 for Alex Lukscheider in the Apex Pilots team. Matthias Novotny, the reigning world champion, 16 years of age for rocket racing, giving us plenty to do. And this man, Lukas Jaworski, 6 times a world champion across the various categories of MotoSurf. There is very little stopping this man once he's got himself into the rhythm. But all 3 riders are finding it very competitive indeed. So the 4th and final heat of the 2025 UIM MotoSurf World Championship season opener in the elite category at the Fujairah Grand Prix of the United Arab Emirates 2025 is going to give us a really good showdown. One of the best seats in the house, I think you'll find. Just out of the back of that particular speedboat, as long as they're closer to the key line there, that's going to be a better chance. So hand in the air for Lukas Jaworski to remind his fellow riders that they're going to go to battle. Nice little handshake there between 2 of the riders as they prepare for the action out on the course. That is the world champion, Matthias Novotny. Getting a little bit of a fist bump there, support from Dominik Kadlic. So it's really going to be an exciting one as the contenders give us plenty of excitement and drama. So really good racing from the contenders. So we're going to see how it all unfolds. And the racers playing out in good style. So a tricky-natured battle will awaken us here in the competition. A fascinating battle of wits between the competitors. Some good racing all around. But now we're going to get to see what will really take place on this exciting part of the course. So the riders line up. Jaworski, Luke Scheider, and Novotny, the top 3 riders in the world, with Matej Kozicek threatening to get in amongst them. He certainly did yesterday. Now let's see if he can eclipse them. The elite riders gear themselves up ready. Only 8 of them are there. Dennis Berder seems to have sat out again, and off we go. And it's going to be tight round the far side. Luke Scheider's got a better launch than Lukas Zahorsky, but can he tighten the radius on the far side? Down to the slalom, and he's there. He's done it. Luke Scheider launches in front of Lukas Zahorsky. They both go the same way in the slalom, so Zahorsky not phased by the white water, left by Luke Scheider. So they work their way through, and Luke Scheider for the Apex pilots draws first blood there in the duel. Excellent work for the contenders as they manage more off the turns. So Mateusz Novotny giving chase to his teammate, Lukas Zahorsky. 6 times a world champion, up against the reigning world champion, Mateusz Novotny. But Luke Scheider is ahead of both of them. Bring on the noise. This is going to be an amazing duel between these 3 riders. And who's going to go there first to the long lap? It's the leader. No, it's not. My apologies. It is Lukas Zahorsky who decides, right, well, you've got the lead then. So I'm going to go straight to the long lap. And I think Dominik Kadlic decided to do the same thing. So Lukas Zahorsky going straight to the long lap for the first time. No worries at all. And there is the rider who's gone with him. No, it's the 4. That's actually Matej Kozicek. So Kozicek is trying to overhaul the 3rd place man, Mateusz Novotny, by going with Lukas Zahorsky through the long lap on the first turn. So that's a very good decision from Matej Kozicek. But there is the leader, Luke Scheider. 2 wins out of 3 yesterday, looking absolutely perfect at the moment. He's in his zone, he's hitting his stride, and this is a man full of confidence and determination. So Luke Scheider for the Apex pilots looks very strong and secure at the moment. Novotny in 2nd, Oliver Nevada is 3rd, but that's because all 3 of the top 3 riders did not take their long lap on the first tour. They get 8 laps in the elite category. And this is the class, of course, where you can make changes to the board. The only thing you don't get the permission to change is the fuel tank and the fuel you use. Everything else, pretty much, every other component, you can change on these elite boards to try and maximize performance and get a little bit more out of them. And at the moment, Luke Scheider is finding it nice and commanding. Out through to the slalom once again. A really impressive display from Luke Scheider as he zips and zooms his way through the slalom. Rides himself out, but careful, that's how tricky it is. See, the waves are choppier than they were yesterday, even again. Friday, they were calm and serene. Saturday, they picked up. And today, the waves are even bigger than they were. So with the wind accelerating, it's definitely making things trickier for Luke Scheider and the competitors in the elite category. So it's not going to be a particularly easy one for the riders to settle in, because as the competition heats up and intensifies, we're going to get more and more tricky moments in the duel for victory. So Luke Scheider continuing to lead the race here. There is the number 3. That's Mateusz Novotny, the reigning world champion, 16 years of age. Very fast indeed for the Rocket Racing team. Put in such a good effort last year. I think Luke Scheider, though, having lost out on the World Championship last year, has been so determined to get back into it this season. He really wanted to put one over on Mateusz Novotny, and then suddenly realizing that he's also going to have competition from the legend that is Lukas Zahorsky, who is still in the form of his life, by the way. That's motivated Luke Scheider. Well, if I'm going to win the World Championship, I'd better do it in 2025 when I can beat the reigning champ and the legend of our sport. So Luke Scheider really starting to put himself into the hunt. 2 wins out of 3 yesterday. There's Matthias Novotny, a few seconds back. 4 laps to go, as we see there on the marker raft. Anybody going for the long lap on this occasion? At the moment, not. That's what the course looks like from above. Now you get to see someone at the bottom of your screen there. You can see someone taking the long lap, deviating away from the course and going on to the longer route where you have to go around the outer perimeter of 4 black and red buoys, and that indicates where you are going through. So Alex Luke Scheider is on the back straight, just keeping himself through. Now tightens around the radius to go into the slalom. You can go right or left. He chooses the left mark. So Luke Scheider has now put himself 5 laps clear of everybody without taking a single joker lap. He wants the rhythm of being out in front. There is Jiri Wolf. So Jiri Wolf currently locked in a battle with Daniel Provaznik. But he's not quite been able to keep himself up there. This is a great effort, though, from Jiri Wolf. 51 years of age, the Autocentrum Viskov rider. And fair play to Jiri Wolf, 51 years of age. Most other riders at that age would be considering racing in the Masters category. Not Jiri Wolf. He races elite because he can. Matthias Novotny really struggling here, the world champion. As he runs in front of Matej Kozicek, he takes to the long lap for, I think, the first time. So Matthias Novotny is not showing up as having taken a long lap yet. He's going to take both of his long laps towards the end. So there is Lukas Zahorski, who has taken at least 1 long lap. I don't think he's taken both of them. But it really is interesting the tactics that these riders choose to employ as Matthias Novotny rejoins just behind Lukas Zahorski. So that's him having taken his first long lap. So Novotny has not gained the ground yet on Lukas Zahorski that he wanted to. And he's only got 2 laps to try and thwart Lukas Zahorski and try and make a better run of it. But Alex Luke Scheider looks like he's got the pace to stay and remain out of the top end. So still the riders charge forward. The Rocket Racing pair of Lukas Zahorski and Matthias Novotny, 6 times world champion against the reigning world champion. And the legend really is pushing on a pace. Now Alex Luke Scheider takes to the long lap for the first time. 6 laps completed for Luke Scheider. So he'll take his long laps on the 7th and 8th laps. So this is where Alex Luke Scheider can now test himself. Push on a little bit more in terms of pace. And then bring himself back into the circuit at turn 3. Looks to his right just to make sure there's nobody there. And he manages to get in front of... Now, who is that? It's Lukas Zahorski. So Lukas Zahorski, who's only taken 1 long lap. Zahorski so nearly falls off the board there. That's how close they are, though, in the mix of the race. They've both taken 1 long lap each. So Zahorski was only a few lengths behind as they came off the turn. So Zahorski has now got to try and undercut him in the final 2 laps. It's not done yet for Alex Luke Scheider. Luke Scheider's got a lot of work if he's going to beat Lukas Zahorski. So keep pushing, keep finding that energy through the slalom. He goes right. There is the man who's trying to catch him, Lukas Zahorski, 6 times a world champion, 23 years of age from the Czech Republic. This man is not to be trifled with for the Rocket Racing team, but this man isn't either. The captains of their ships, ultimately. The white flag goes up. Alex Luke Scheider's got to take the long lap. Lukas Zahorski is pushing on him every single corner, though. Through they come. Alex Luke Scheider trying to work his way forward. Now watch this. He will take to the long lap. Alex Luke Scheider struggling a little bit actually off that turn, but now he's got to take the long lap. Here he goes. This is the moment when we find out who's going to win the 4th and final heat of the elite. And this will give us a real indication as to who's going to be the man to beat in the final later on. There's Lukas Zahorski coming through to cross the start gate. Has he done enough to eclipse him? They come through, look in the distance. There is Luke Scheider. There's nothing in it, but Luke Scheider's held on. Alex Luke Scheider has been able to hang on here from Lukas Zahorski for just that little bit longer. And Alex Luke Scheider has put himself in a position. They've got a hand in the air because someone's gone down in the drink. Now, I can't quite see who that is, unfortunately, but we seem to have lost a rider into the waves. So that's definitely somebody in trouble. I wonder if it's Daniel Provaznik. who certainly seems to have lucked out in terms of the time, but it's not going to affect the leaders as Alex Lukscheider has absolutely commanded this race. He's done a fantastic job working his way through the slalom then for the last time, and no matter what Lukas Jaworski can throw at him, Alex Lukscheider has been the man to trouble him, and he is looking so confident. If he can maintain this throughout the season, then Lukscheider could get the championship of championships here out of the final turn, and Lukscheider makes it 3 wins out of 4. Excellent work from Alex Lukscheider. Supreme racing. An excellent performance indeed then from the 18-year-old from the Czech Republic for the Apex pilots. Masterclass from Alex Lukscheider. That is absolutely superlative. The rest of the riders come through to cross the start gate. So they cross the finishing gate, and Lukas Jaworski, well, that's interesting. The body language tells me that Lukas Jaworski is in some discomfort there. So Lukas Jaworski was desperately trying to find a little bit more pace than Alex Lukscheider, and he didn't manage it. Frustration there, I think, for Lukas Jaworski. And a little bit of back issues there as well, maybe, for the 23-year-old. So I just wonder if Lukas Jaworski is going to have to pull something special out of the bag to go for the victory in the final. He looks under pressure, doesn't he? This man doesn't. Alex Lukscheider absolutely on it this week here in Fujairah. This is exactly how he wanted to start the season in the UIM MotoSurf World Championship. The others finding it tricky. How do Rocket Racing now respond to the king of the Apex pilots? Fascinating stuff in the elite categories. Alex Lukscheider gets it 3 wins out of 4 ahead of Lukas Jaworski and Matthias Novotny. Matej Kozicek in 4th place in front of Oliver Nevada and Dominik Kadlic. Daniel Pravaznik coming home in 7th place ahead of Jiri Wolf, with Dennis Berda electing not to start. So big drama then in the elites as Lukscheider and Jaworski's duel continues. Matthias Novotny is about 5.5 seconds adrift of the two of them, so he's got to find something ready for the last race of the day later.